Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a different type of lesson today because we're going to cover two scenes in one. We're going to Act 3, Scenes 3 and Scene 4. Act 3, Scene 3 is Banquo's murder, and that's a very short scene. And then Act 3, Scene 4 is Banquo's ghost at the banquet. You can see from both of the images the two scenes we're dealing with here. This is a very long scene, it's a very important scene, so I'm prepared to give you two lessons to cover this. I'd like you to open the Word documents. So for the Word documents for this, you're going to need the scenes for reading, Act 3, Scene 3, and Act 3, Scene 4. And you're going to need the Act 3, Scene 4, and Act 3, Scene 3, and Scene 4 lesson Word document. So you've got all of those, you're ready to go. The first thing to do is to watch the actual scenes themselves. So if you click this link to Digital Theatre, you log in, dtplus.wbhs, and your password WBHS123. If you can zoom ahead, please, to 1 hour, 13 minutes and 15 seconds, then you're going to watch in total 18 minutes from there. It's absolutely brilliant how they do it. But the first thing you could watch if you want, you could start with Act 3, Scene 3. So you could just watch from the moment I've said up until Banquo's murder. Okay, get ready to do that, please, and then continue on here. Okay, so we've looked at the murder of Banquo. Here's a summary of Act 3, Scene 3. It's dusk, and the two murderers, now joined by a third one, linger in a wooded park outside the palace. Banquo and Fleance approach on their horses and dismount. They light a torch and the murderers set upon them. The murderers kill Banquo, who dies, urging his son to flee and avenge his death. One of the murderers extinguishes the torch, and in the darkness Fleance escapes. The murderers leave with Banquo's body to find Macbeth and tell him what has happened. I want you to reduce that summary to 20 words, please. And then your final task for this particular scene, before we move to the big one, is to choose one of these three tasks. Don't try and do them all, just do one. Explain the significance of the setting of the scene. Why have it outside the palace in a dark, wooded area? Why task 2? Evaluate why this scene's really important. This is the third time we've heard of Macbeth killing. Firstly, he killed MacDonald in battle. Then he killed King Duncan, his own king. Now he's had his best friend murdered. Task 3. It's the worst thing Macbeth has done. Do you agree with that statement? To what extent? Okay, choose one of those questions and complete that one in the box. And then that's Act 3, Scene 3 done, and we'll get into the real meat of things, which is Act 3, Scene 4. Okay, welcome back. We're now moving to Act 3, Scene 4. And the big question, how far do you agree that this is the point of no return for Macbeth's character? Let's consider that. We're going to start with your summary of the scene, please. So if you can watch the rest of it now, the banquet scene, and then offer a 20-word summary. When you've done that, continue here. Okay, welcome back. We're now going to talk about the importance of this particular scene. Well, firstly, if we look at its position in the line of a tragedy, you have this illustration on the right-hand side, and this is Freytag's narrative structure. And this is the structure of a tragedy. And at this moment, we are at the point, the climax, the turning point from which there is no going back. Let's think about why there is no going back for Macbeth. Because in this scene, his strength of mind and his self-control really crumble. He's no longer in control of himself. He can also no longer truly be deceptive, no longer be the equivocator, if you remember that word from a couple of lessons ago. He's now laying everything he's done out there for people to see. And his wife tries to pretend this is some form of condition that he has. This collapse of mental power also leads to a collapse of his real power. His thanes are in the hall when this happens, and they start to desert him en masse. The noblemen of Scotland start to leave Macbeth. Furthermore, number 4, Lady Macbeth cannot control Macbeth anymore. She tries to play that "are you a man" trick on him, and it no longer works. And the 5th one, by the end, Macbeth is thoroughly morally degenerated. He's morally become repulsive and awful. He now wants to seek out the witches himself. He talks about bathing in blood. Okay, take a moment to write down what you think is important about this scene, and then come back. We're going to focus on some quotations. Okay, we're going to focus on a range of key quotations in this scene. So you have these on your Word document and you can annotate on the right-hand side. The first quotation I'm going to focus on. The murderer says, "Most royal sir, Fleance escaped." And Macbeth says, "Then comes my fit again. I had else been perfect, whole as the marble, founded as the rock, as broad and general in the key as the casing air. But now I am cabined, cribbed, confined, bound into saucy doubts and fears." We've got antithesis going on here. Macbeth says when he hears about the murder, he had been perfect, like marble, strong, bold, pure, and beautiful. But now that he's heard Fleance has escaped, he is cabined, cribbed, confined. He is imprisoned. All those words are synonyms for being in prison, words with similar meanings for being in prison. But the way Shakespeare writes this is interesting. He uses the alliteration here, cabined, cribbed, confined. And this is what we call plosive alliteration, plosives, the repetition of p, b, k, or d sounds. And these plosives really illustrate Macbeth's anger and terror at this moment, his frustration. So Shakespeare's language captures Macbeth's frustration so well. The antithesis, he goes from being really pure and perfect to being really angry and full of worry. Okay, you might want to pause, write your notes, and we'll go to the second quotation. Our next quotation is such a good one for looking at Macbeth and Lady Macbeth's relationship. Lady Macbeth says, "Are you a man?" Macbeth says, "Ay, and a bold one that dare look on that which might appall the devil." So Lady Macbeth's line, "Are you a man?" This is a parallel to an earlier line, isn't it, from Act 1, Scene 7, when Lady Macbeth says, "When you durst do it, then you were a man. When you kill King Duncan, then you're a man." What effect did this have on Macbeth back in Act 1? It's a very powerful effect, wasn't it? Macbeth heard, "Are you a man? When you durst do it, then you were a man," and thought, "Okay, I'm going to do it to prove I'm a man." Lady Macbeth tries the same trick. "Are you a man?" Macbeth doesn't respond. Lady Macbeth tries again. "Oh, proper stuff. This is the very painting of your fear. This is the air-drawn dagger which you said led you to Duncan." She's trying to mock him. She continues to try and humiliate him and weaken his masculinity and claim he's not manly by saying, "Oh, these flaws and starts, impostors to true fear, would well become a woman's story at a winter's fire, authorized by a grandame. Shame itself! Why do you make such faces?" She really tries to mock him and diminish his masculinity, but it has no effect on him whatsoever. It's a perfect sign of Lady Macbeth's diminishing power and influence. She no longer has the power and influence over Macbeth that she used to have. And we can see it in the picture here. Her trying to support him, her trying to almost humiliate him, and it's not working. Instead, he responds. Let's go to the next one. He responds by ranting on, and I think this picture captures it perfectly. We've got Michael Fassbender here as Macbeth, hanging on his wife, but totally in power, pointing at what he sees as the ghost, and her face is one of absolute shame and embarrassment at him. She's furious with him here, because she thinks he's being very silly. Macbeth here says, "Murders have been performed too terrible for the ear. The times have been that when the brains were out the man would die and there an end. But now they rise again with 20 mortal murders on their crowns and push us from their stools." Well, I think we've got some interesting things happening in the language here. Macbeth's language when he thinks about death is incredibly bloody. It's not a peaceful thing. Brains were out. 20 mortal murders on their crowns. Macbeth is a man obsessed with violence. He's also a man obsessed with crowns. When he talks about 20 mortal murders on their crowns, Shakespeare could easily have used the word head here, but he doesn't. He uses the word crown. Crown and head, interchangeable words, but crown obviously a reference to Macbeth's obsession with being king. Might want to pause, make some notes, then we'll continue with the next one. Okay, the ghost of Banquo reappears, and Macbeth says this: What man dare? I dare. Approach thou like the rugged Russian bear, the armed rhinoceros, or the hurricane tiger. Well, Macbeth is a man of violence here completely, isn't he? He resorts to the two things he knows best, bravery and violence. If Banquo's ghost approaches him like a rugged Russian bear, he would fight it. Like an armed rhinoceros, he would fight it. Like a hurricane tiger, he would fight it. Look at all the animal imagery used here again by Shakespeare. Macbeth says, though, to the ghost, take any shape but that, and my firm nerves shall never tremble. Take any shape but the ghost of Banquo, and I wouldn't be afraid. The ghost of Banquo terrifies Macbeth. Perhaps it's his guilt personified here, this ghost of Banquo. Okay, this next quotation is such an interesting one when the ghost vanishes. Macbeth orders the ghost away and says, "Hence, horrible shadow, unreal mockery, hence!" Hence meaning go away effectively here. And the ghost of Banquo vanishes. And Macbeth says, "Why so? Being gone, I'm a man again." It's almost as if Macbeth believes that once the ghost has disappeared, he'll be absolutely fine, and everyone will see him being fine, which shows his madness. He has revealed his madness to everyone and thinks that it will just be fine going back to normal. Patrick Stewart captures this brilliantly. If you click this clip here and play for 4 minutes 20 seconds to the end, it's only 15 seconds, you'll show brilliantly Macbeth almost deluding himself. Okay, we're going to try playing it through this. It didn't work last time I tried this, so let's see if it works now. Okay, I'm not sure how well that played. If it didn't, you can just click the link yourself, can't you, and watch that. The performance is just astonishing, really. Two more quotations I want to look at with you. Macbeth states, "I'm in blood, stepped in so far that should I wade o'er, returning would as tedious as go o'er." He emphasizes just how much he's full of blood and his life is one of blood now, and he almost finds the whole thing boring. Shakespeare's really emphasizing the semantic field of blood, and references to blood from this moment are just going to increase and increase. From the moment Duncan was killed in Act 2, Scene 3, we see Act 2, Scene 2, sorry, we see all those references to washing hands, and the reference to blood are going to continue with Macbeth and with Lady Macbeth. Lady Macbeth says this line here. It's her final line of this scene. She says to Macbeth, "You lack the season of all natures, sleep." She's suggesting to him, "Macbeth, you need to find a way to go to sleep and make yourself better." Well, this is foreshadowing Lady Macbeth's own inability to sleep later on. And there's an irony here. She's ordering him to sleep, and that sleep will bring peace, but it brings her no peace. This is also, interestingly for me, I discovered Lady Macbeth's final line in the play before she's mad. The next time we see her, she will be washing her hands. Yet here's a spot, out damned spot, that strange scene from later on. This is the final time she'll be on stage with Macbeth, and look how powerless she now seems. Especially when Macbeth ends the scene with this line here, "We are yet but young indeed," as if to say, we're not through this. We have loads more trouble to come. Okay, so you might want to think, how far do you agree that this is the point of no return for Macbeth? Your extension tasks for the day, if you want to do them, you can click on this TED Talk, watch the clip, and make some notes on this. It says in the box provided, I haven't actually provided you with a box, but you can manage. And you could track the changes in Macbeth's character. How much control does he have over himself and the situation he finds himself in across this particular act, the 6 scenes? Or if you'd rather do it, you could chart this Macbeth's control over himself and the situation over the whole play. Okay, that's 2